coming to ma'am said such a beautiful point about Lama's classes. You know, nowadays Lama's classes, in the name of prenatal classes, you know, every hospital is offering something or the other, and people go attend it, and they think the duty is done. Okay, they have attended a class, so they go and check the rates. Okay, this here the rate is cheap. This is cheap. But for me personally, I feel Lamaze is that confidence building exercise. It's that beautiful bridge between a mother who's really fearful to the one who actually understands all about birth. So, how important do you think are these Lamaze classes? I want you to talk about the differences between the so-called childbirth classes or the so-called Lamaze classes which people offer, but and what is the actual importance of it, and why should mothers attend it? Like ma'am said, the birth rate, the number of C-section from 80 it has come down to 54% just with the fact that women started doing these Lamaze classes, they started attending, and also it started from the gynecologist point of view where she is also recommending that yes, it is a collaborative effort of both mother and the doctor. So can you talk about these attending classes just for the heck of it, like okay, wife and husband go, it's a fancy thing, it's versus what is the actual importance of doing this prenatal classes?
Again, if we look at internalizing information, I would put it exactly that way, because unless and until you're in a space which allows you to internalize information, this is an adult education, it's an adult process. You have to want to do it and want to do it for the right reasons. So one of the things that we say here at Sanctum, and we have for years we have had somewhere between a 90 to 92% natural birth rate. And when we say natural birth, I mean that it's a natural birth, it's not with interventions. And yes, there are some where there have needed interventions and it's been a normal delivery versus a natural birth. But for years we've had this because of a couple of things. The first time when a couple walks in, we go over everything with them and we tell them that this is participative care. This is care that you and we both take responsibility for. Everyone's risk-taking ability might be different, but the responsibilities have to be there. And I show them, here is the page where we look at what are your responsibilities. You will eat well, you will exercise. Oftentimes we forget that the basics are really the basics. We need to do those things. You will make sure that your mind is opened out to different options and possibilities that can happen both in your pregnancy and labor and birth. You will ensure that you will attend classes. And I tell them very clearly that I will not do any birth without you attending classes. That's a bare minimum, because then you and I are talking at the same level. You talked earlier that about how does she understand how she can do things by herself without the gynecologist talking over her and at her. We are talking with her, right? That is a place where you understand who you are and what you can become. That's a place where you can bloom into your parenthood. Without knowing that, how do you even make choices as to, should I go lie down? Should I go take an epidural? It's become one of those fashionable things where the classes so-called say they will get an anesthetist in. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not passing a judgment on anything. But if you are in a class which gives you say 5 hours and has a half an hour from a nutritionist, half an hour from a physiotherapist, half an hour from an anesthetist, half an hour by the gynecologist talking, what are you going to go away with that from? Less confusion or more confusion?
More confusion, obviously.
Obviously. So I think you need to figure out what you're doing and why you're doing it for. And when we initially say this to the parent, they'll say, really, I have to attend it? And then when they come out of it, they'll say, the class was a game changer. And the game changer is that now they have become the players. They are not observers of their own body. Right? So the players have to happen, and the basic principles of Lamaze have to be followed, whether it's Lamaze or whether it's any other technique. It can be hypnobirthing, it can be anything else. But the point is, that's where you are able to sit down and explore what are things that are important for you. Google teaches you what labor is. You don't need to go and attend a class for that. Stages of labor, is that the only thing that is important? Sure, I think it makes it personalized if you say, okay, what is active labor, what is early labor? But does Google teach you how can you quietly rest and still be perfectly normal in labor? Does Google teach you that you can go to a movie in early labor? Does Google teach you not to panic even when your bag of waters breaks and there is nothing to rush? No. I think you need to sit with someone who quietly can put that across to you and say, now what do you feel about it? And I think one of the things that confidence building exercise, when they walk in and when they walk out, they should feel more confident when they walked in. There is always going to be vultures on every corner, which says, you know, this can go wrong, that can go wrong. But internally, if you have heard something and had time to process it, that confidence building exercise has to be there, you know. And if people are, even if people tell you things, then you can go back and understand that this was what was told. Now I have at least a reference point. When we talk about interventions, what do? We don't tell them that this is bad, this is bad. What do we talk in class about? That interventions are there for a reason. I think the important thing for parents to understand is that Lamaze classes are not just something that you come and finish off and it's a checkbox like you talked about. What is clear to me is that there is two extremes in these classes. One is where people think that it is just an exercise class. And while exercises are there as a small component of it, it is simply to say, move your body, be free, see how it feels to be in movement, enjoy what you're doing when you're at home, take some of those and work your hips and your pelvis. And that's important because I think we have forgotten that we started off from, you know, being very mobile, with your maybe like grandmoms or great grandmoms working in the home, sitting on the floor, using Indian toilets, which were there, you know, until very recently, and even now they are there, but lesser and lesser. Working in agriculture, going to the village well, that was their exercise, everything, and the community of women which was around them when they walked to the village well, for example, was their source of good, strengthening, woman-centric, internal knowledge. Nobody told them what to do. They knew that their pains would be there. There was no fear surrounding it. They would work in the home. They would work till the last minute. And literally none of our grandmoms would say that they had a long labor. None. They'll say, I had some pain. I kept doing my work. And then, you know, it finally became a little intense. And before, you know, I could go to call the dai or whoever, I just gave birth. And many of them birthed multiple children. And there were always children being born because there were joint families. So the physical activity was taken care of by how active they were, and the mental component of no fear was there because they had, you know, they saw birth as a normal routine process. In the class, we have to go back and clear out all those things. So clarifying doubts becomes a big thing. Making sure that women become that little bit of mobile, and again, sexuality is looked as something which is dirty or bad. Without sex comes no child. So when we, unless and until we own that sexuality and say, this is a part of moving my body, I know how to move, I also know what doesn't feel good. And internally knowing what feels good and what doesn't feel good is a big exercise for how do you move in labor. So coming to doing that and then going across and learning a little bit about what labor can be, because media portrays is that either the woman saying, honey, I think it's time, well, or she's screaming and then she goes inside and out comes the white coated doctor with a baby. There is nothing in between. There is a vacuum. So that has to be filled in by the class. And then unless and until you talk about what are you going to do once this baby comes? This is a huge question. Until then it's all been baby moon and baby shoots and you're spending thousands on photography, on getting the perfect dress.
Nowadays even
Videography, getting, you know, the room ready for this baby, but you don't know what to do with the baby. That's a place of exercise where you say, how do I choose to become a parent? What does breastfeeding mean to me? Choose not to breastfeed if that's what you want, but information that the first day your baby's stomach is just exactly that much and then you complain, I don't have enough milk? Or people around you are trying to squeeze your breast and 5 people are standing and saying, she doesn't have enough milk?
That's true.
So antenatal education of breastfeeding, newborn care, how do you make good choices for yourself as a new mom? Who is your support system going to be in labor? We have not thought about that. We do so many, we take retakes and things and go and shop in different places and spend, but we don't have the basic idea about who is going to be in labor when I open my eyes and I'm in discomfort. Who do I want to see in front of me? And then we expect labor to go well. A woman has a right, and this is what good classes should teach you. It's an internal process. She needs good support. She needs to be mobile in labor. She needs to have excellent care provider who can actually adjust and know what her philosophy of birth is, and both of those must match. She needs to know when the baby comes that it's okay to take a minute of pause. She needs to know that she's next going to have to take care of this baby, and it's a 24/7 endeavor until a long, long time, until they become adults, but at least in the initial few phases. And without that, we are calling them classes. It doesn't do any justice to either the mom or her partner who are going like deer in the headlight into labor and then saying again, you tell me, I don't know what to do.
In the current